So the reason that I actually like maps in the first place, and why I did the maps for the art exhibition, is when I was younger, when I was in my early teens, I really liked this book series, um, Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone, and I also like. See, they had a really big series of books. It's actually a really popular series, and by the time I was reading them, these had been reissued and they'd redone the covers with these scroll. Actually, the actual covers are like a scroll on the front. I hadn't seen the previous releases, so they were sort of well into re-releasing them. And I actually thought some of these were actually brand new books, because the later ones were only just being republished. And then as they got up to the point where they'd published all the previous ones, then they did start actually writing some new ones. I don't know if there's like a 50 or 100 books. So that some are Steve Jackson, some are Ian Livingstone, some are Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone, and they're like game books. They're those type of books where you sort of roll the dice and play it as a game. But the images in them are very Tolkien-esque, very sort of Lord of the Rings style. The whole world's actually inspired by Lord of the Rings. So I guess when you're a teenager, it gets you. These are some of the other books. It gets you into that. The first book was The Warlock of Firetop Mountain, ironically. So if there ever was a war about the top of a hill fort or mountain, then we've sort of got one here now, a real life one. So it is like in a very prehistoric style, which is the sort of fantasy style of the Lord of the Rings. So now these books were to be used for when you play, not when you play these ones, but when you play with your friends, you make up your own adventures. It's called role play, and then you get these sort of character sheets, and it's basically verbal. It's a verbal and written record style game where you've got sheets and rules, but you sort of have it's a little bit like, in a way, when they used to have that nightmare program on television with Treguard, and it's a little bit sort of like that, but that was computer graphics. Now, the world in which it takes place in the majority of the books is this Alancia place. Now, they do have small versions of the map in there, but this is the big version. And then they had another series of books. They had this series of books, which was Steve Jackson's Sorcery. And this Steve Jackson Sorcery series was only sort of limited to a few of the books. And this actually had more magic in it. They had a slightly different artist. It had a slightly different style to it. These ones use magic more, and it's actually based a lot more on spellcasting and magic, I guess, like Harry Potter sort of thing. And that took place in this continent called Kakabad, and you go to Mapang Fortress and you set off here from Analand and through the Shamatanti Hills to Care, the city porter traps. So when you're young, it really gets into your head. These maps are. And actually, these are some of the most famous illustrated fantasy maps that there are. And later on in this Titan, it actually, you do get some colour drawings as well. It's very much like York, like the style of York, really, and Cambridge and where, like there are other places besides York. So in this, you see. That's the Alancia continent, or that side of it's on the map, and then later on you get the whole like this. This is that the second map that's where Analand is. So that's a different continent, but it all takes place in the same world, and this is cool. So I guess that Krull movie was sort of influenced by this cool place a little bit. So like this is meant to be the global map of the planet, and then there was like an Atlantis place that got sunk, and there's some islands and stuff like that. So it is in the same world, on the same planet, where it takes place. But actually, when they started the fantasy battle, they had this Britannia, an empire thing, and that they actually, I think they changed it after they started that, because it didn't actually appear in any of these. It was sort of ditched. So this is basically a small section of map of a different area of a continent, which is different to this one. But this is the main one. The Alancia map with Fire Island, Firetop Mountain is where the first book takes place, the Warlock of Firetop Mountain. You've got these Icefinger Mountains here, which the Icefinger Mountains is where this book takes place, the Caverns of the Snow Witch. And then the main parts of this map are the Darkwood Forest, where Yastromos Tower is, which kind of makes me think of Emily Mask quite a lot, actually. And when you come out of Lepton Woods, where that style was, and look towards Emily Mast, it actually really felt like you were coming out of the Darkwood Forest and looking at Emily Mast. And I actually made a video about that, and that was shortly before the wall actually got pulled down. And I also noted how it felt quite similar to that in the Stardust film. There's a place called Wall, and they've got this guy there sitting there, but that wall's actually demolished in a section. That's actually what it's ended up like being now, but it was better before it when it had like a little unique style. And then they've got this Stonebridge place where the dwarves are. It's pretty much like Lord of the Rings, but this is it's almost like Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone's version of Lord of the Rings. But there are a lot of Oriental named places, like Salamonis, and I think they mix up a bit of Oriental, a bit of like they've got this Desert of Skulls, which is a little bit like the west coast of Africa, and they've got Fire Island, which this Fire Island sort of reminds me of the Doctor No film a little bit, but they've got lizard men on there, but it's a little bit like The Land Before Time, but it sort of reminds me of Doctor No's Island a little bit. One of the main places is this Port Blacksand, which is on the coast, and Port Blacksand is sort of a little bit like York, but a fantasy version. Then they've got all these other places which feature in different books. See, there's a book about Firetop Mountain, and there's actually a book about this wizard Yastromon going through Darkwood Forest. I think that's the Forest of Doom book. And then this Trolltooth Pass. There's actually a story on the Trolltooth Wars. That's not a game book. It's actually a proper story, the Trolltooth Wars. And then I think the Citadel of Chaos takes place there. So, there's a lot of different books, but I really, really grew very affectionate of this map, and I grew quite fond of it. And the style and character of this map, it's a very well known and well established popular map, and this is a extremely successful creation, really. I think Steve Jackson or Ian Livingstone, it might be Ian Livingstone, one of them might have got an award like an OBE or something as well, So when I wanted to do a map of our area, but not a fantasy map, not a pretend map, but a real map, I wanted to base it on the style of this one, but do it true to our landscape and area. You see, the thing is, with the John Speed maps, he just does like random drawings of hills. He does the rivers generally correct, sort of similar to this, really. In fact, these rivers, you could say that are based on the John Speed map style of river, actually. I think that you see, this is David Andrews, and I tried to contact him to get him to do a map for me, but I can't find his contact details. So you see, the John Speed maps don't have any true actual landscape features that are actually accurate. It mainly just, when there's some mountains, he draws, little pictures of mountains, but he's got all the place names laid out as you encounter them in real life. So really, the John Speed maps are more a general loose guide to the terrain and estates. It's got estates marked on there, private landowner estates, and it's also got the accurate and true names of places, if you spelled them right, laid out generally correct. So it would be a way for people to know whereabouts places are on the island, in the country, in relation to each other. And then obviously we've got the Jeffries maps, which are a lot more true to the terrain. Jeffries focuses on the terrain. He's even got Camberdownham at Huddersfield actually written on the map, and he's taken it from history accounts. And he's actually got Warrior's Tomb. He records its existence as a landscape feature, but he doesn't draw it in the Liberty shape that it is. He draws it circular, which is not exactly true to the actual shape of it. So, but Jeffrey's map is more like a topographical. It is a geography map. It's an early geography map of the landscape features and terrain, and it has got places on it. And then we've got later maps, obviously, and from then on you get better. But if you get a road map of England, for example, it hasn't got geography on it. It's got simple, basic geography. If you look underneath the roads, there usually are some topographical fine lines for altitude, but it mainly focuses on the roads and the towns and the places. It's definitely not a map of countryside and urban areas. It might have rivers and railways on it, but it's a different sort of a map. So that's basically, I thought it would be a good idea, because the situation currently is that I don't think, or get a feeling, that the people of Huddersfield, Kirklees, West Yorkshire, although we've got Castle Hill and they like Castle Hill, it's been rebranded and it's been re-promoted, and the visual access has been altered and removed from certain vantage points in a way and manner, whereas it's promoted as a castle, Castle Hill, and the Victoria Queen Tower. So, and the other sites haven't been acknowledged or remembered since Chas C. Hobkirk's book, which brought a lot of attention to it. And then we've got the tram line out there, which is really what caused the attention, really, of the area's demise, really. Now, with all the urban development, the only people who take photos of and appreciate the Pennine Hills, like around Meltham and Home Firth, are people who do photography more over that side. We've got Snake. You see, they call it Snake Pass, and you think of a snake. And we go up there, and we know that this is the edge of the Pennines, and we've got Home Firth. But because of the last of the summer wine, because of the Pennine Walk, it's a trail, it's a walk, It's almost like the M62 goes up along the top of the ridge, It's almost like a route now, And in fact, that house in the middle of the motorway, all that kerfuffle about going around the house, caused more attention. I think that house, the house on the prairie, gets more attention probably, as much as in Castle Hill. So it's the way the people see the area in their minds and the affection and love they have for the area. Now, when you go to, like, the White Horse at Uffington, you have got that. It is relatively unurbanised. They've retained the countryside. You've got this beautiful White Horse next to a hill fort, with a little Dragon Hill as well. They call it Dragon Hill, but it's only like a small mound next to the hill fort, with the White Horse next to it. And then within walking distance of like a mile, which is sort of like from Castle Hill, if you go over to the Golden Cock at Farnley Tire, so a little bit further into those woods, maybe a little bit further than that, but within within the locale. Then you've got the Long Barrow, but it's actually in a woodland, which is kind of a little bit like this. You got Yashamer's Tower and Dartwood Forest. It's almost as much kind of similar sort of feeling of sentiment. And the amount of times it's photographed, you don't really understand that Little Uffington setup just by reading about it or hearing about it until you actually go there and do the walks, and you see the relationship of the hill fort to the horse itself, and the fact it's also got a little Long Barrow in the woods nearby. And then it's creating not only one thing, but it's like its own little prehistoric setup, although they haven't restored it to, no one knows exactly what it looked like when it was but it's the remnants of a little setup. And it's the character and charm of the area and the affection that the locals have as a prehistoric site. You know, they've not rebranded it as the Jubilee Hill Fort or Last of the Summer Hill Forts or have a cup of tea and a slice of cake there. It is very much prehistoric site. Funnily enough, on the West Riding of West Riding of Yorkshire maps, Alex Hogg one, there's a little white horse on there. I think it refers to the Riding, and it's East Riding, but it makes me think of the white horse. But there is a white horse in northeast Yorkshire anyway, but it's more of a later one. It's not like a prehistoric style one that is a little bit more abstract and more ancient style. So that's the background and basis, basically, for why I wanted to do a map, because I think that our area, the true, real, accurate landscape, has got a character. It is a formation of sites within an area that I truly believe did collaborate together, because there are no other sites near it. You see, down south, right, all these little dots, look, this is the part that goes off of Cornwall and Devon, right? And that is a hill fort there, right? Pembury Cross, which actually has the shape of a dragon with its wings out, and the hill fort is on the head of the dragon. So if it's at night time and you've got fires lit, it definitely would look like fire come out of its nostrils. And this actually is a ridge. There's a guy who's got an infrared scan of it. And it also does look like a mushroom the other way around, but it definitely is like a snake coming through the grass, or a dragon or dinosaur beast. And it's actually, I thought it was facing going into England from Devon, but it's actually going into Devon. But it's almost like when you use a word of the reference of the pen, not for writing with a pen, not a writing pen, but like, pen and sheep. I don't really want to go into debating that, but, you have a pen to hold sheep in, so, it kind of makes me wonder if the Arthur Pendragon, although R2 was meant to mean a bear, but when you start thinking of the dragon and the Pendragon, he's now used for the border of Wales. But before the Welsh got pushed into Wales, they were in England. So it makes me wonder, pre-1066, all between when the Romans left and until, the year 1000 or whatever, when we've got this through the Arthurian period, and that's when the Legends of Pendragon is. If their accounts and legends might have referred back to an earlier period of when we did, before the Roman conquest, when we did have all the different clans and all the different hill forts, and they all had a different emblem and symbol, and maybe that's where the emblems on the shields originates from, and having, lions or bears on shields like Warwickshire coat of arms and all that, and where the animals come from. There's always been a symbology on something, like on a shield, but when we go back further, we have the animal symbologies actually on the places they live. The white horses in the side, decorating the side of their hill fort, right? Now, this particular clan, there's no doubt this is animal form, whether you want to say snake-like or dragon-like, although it's not like a white chalk horse in the cliff. It actually is the shape of the hill fort was on the head of the dragon. I think there's something to that Pendragon legend that goes back even further to this clan, and I think this was likely a prominent clan. Where it actually is there. So it's sort of, but the dragon is sort of kind of facing offline that way I put the arrow. But all these little red dots you see, these are all sites, hill fort sites or ancient castles, right? Now look how many of them are. It's absolutely shrapnelled with ancient sites. So it's not like there's just the dragon one. In this part of the country and a lot of the south, you see, you're getting towards Maiden Castle around here, which is like the biggest hill fort that we know. You've got a lot of sites. But in our area, when we get to West Yorkshire, we don't. But yet in Scotland, again, when you get to Scotland, then it's absolutely dotted with sites, again in Scotland. So why is it in West Yorkshire, unless a lot of them have been destroyed completely or not recognised, we've got a very small number of sites? There's Barwick and Helmet, right? And then there are one or two Barnsley, Sheffield, and then there's ours where we are. Now, you wouldn't just have one little lone site by itself, I don't think, without any others around it, unless there was something particular about it, or if it's so isolated, it wouldn't be by itself. I think it's a group of sites, and the evidence for having groups of sites is Warminster, Scratchbury, Battlesbury, and Middle Hill. You've got 3 sites, and on the south coast you've got Sisbury, Ring, Hillfort, and Shanktonbury at Worthing, where they actually lived on the Hillfort and mined flint, quarried flint on the Hillfort and lived on it, a massive one, and then it got torn up by tanks in the war when they were testing tanks out or practicing whatever. That's another story. And then, so you do get hill forts within 2.5 kilometres of each other. And these are evidence of that as well, because you've just got loads of dots close to each other. But I think particularly the Warminster site and the Worthing site show that, they're really, really, really close together. So it's normal. Now, the fact that the thing with our area, and really I should actually get the map out, in fact. So when we get onto the subject of our area that I've done the map for, it in this vale, in this valley we've got, which it is concealed in a way. It's a nice concealed pocket. You've got the Pennines protecting you on this side, and then you've got this ridge here, what goes down the hill into Halifax. And then when you're coming on the river, even from, you probably couldn't sail up to here because, it's too shallow. But, you could definitely went before the land irrigation patents and before drainage was invented and before we were using a hell of a lot more water. The water levels were a lot higher and the floodplains were more extensive, which I've got evidence for that. So you would have been able to use these rivers a lot more navigable on shallow bottom boats, particularly down, following the flow of the river, at least if you're going that way, and then sail up it so far this way, You've got this bit here, you see, protecting the visual, it's hidden this way, and until you get quite close this way. So, that's just a bit of light reflecting on there. So, what this is quite a hidden, secret area. But when you find this area, and you're up at Upper Hopton, right, and you look across from this side, Castle Hill is absolutely majestic and prominent, standing up in the middle of a valley, and it's very, very beautiful. And from this view this way, it's perfectly symmetrical. So it looks very nice, neat and even in the middle. And then when you see it from the side, you realise that it's a long barrow form, actually, which is the same as Helm. And they're approximately the same size and dimensions anyway. And then you see, hidden in this valley, you've got the mound, which happens to be Liberty Cap shape. Now, I didn't think about this until I found out about the Glendewy dolmen, which is a little... it's a big dolmen in like a crack in the earth, but a lot smaller than this valley. But it's still female symbology. We know they had female symbology, even when they've got the sheen and the gigs, after the Norman conquest. And then going back further, we know they use female symbology because of Uli Longbarrow is female shaped and Corn Valley Cairn is female shaped, even though it's the Isle of Man. It's called the Isle of Man, but Corn Valley Cairn is like female shape, which that's another anomaly. And we've got Glendewy dolmen in that crack in that valley. And, you know, there are other. Then you've got Bella Snap, which is male shaped. So it's something in nature, form in nature, which they when you come out of these long barrows that are female shaped, it most definitely is. You know, it's suggested towards, you know, the birth, basically. You know. Now the other thing about this area is that it's the start of the river, right? And it almost has this like tree branch shape. It is almost like, you know, when you think of the word Braintree in Essex, there's a place called Braintree, you know, it almost is like that, you know. And the rain falls and then the rivers form and then it goes this way and then it goes to the ocean. So it's almost like the source of the river. And the word for, the Gaelic word for liberty is sorcery. It's like sorcery, right? Which I've put here, which is interesting. And there were a lot more lakes here. There was actually bigger lakes according to the ancient prehistoric maps that I've got, which show more lakes here than the Lake District, although the mountains aren't as big, but we definitely had more larger water bodies. So, and then if you also include subject study and interest into evolution of humans and the religious orders and the psychedelics, and you get into Dennis McKenna and Paul Stamets and Terence McKenna and Jonathan Ott and all that, you know that these plants that they're using are significant not only to the religious orders but the evolution. So if there was a religious order around the island, and this is on the biodiversity maps quite a good source of in season of liberties, and I know they're quite small, a lot smaller than some other mushrooms, but for weight, when you get 30 grams of liberty caps and you get 30 grams of a bigger mushroom like an American one or a European one, the liberties have actually got more stronger active content in them per weight. So if you've got 30 grams of liberty caps, there's more psilocybin in them than there is in 30 grams of another mushroom. So they are actually quite strong for the size, right? Now, and when you do find them, you find a lot of them, particularly in the long grass, hidden, but you've got to find them. Now, that actually is almost like trying to look in the valley, look in here, particularly if it's got trees around it, to find this little knobble thing, which is actually liberty cap shaped. So there's a symbology in that as well, you know, as well as just female, you know. So that is interesting, you know, and it's interesting for symbology. But so if this was something to do with the religious order and the supply of that religion, and it being secret, it might have sort of been secret on purpose. So, but what I've said to Dennis McKenna, I put a message recently the other day on Dennis McKenna's Facebook page, because the thing, even though Dennis McKenna and Paul Stamets are trying to promote psilocybin and, you know, try to legalise it, there were only places like, you know, Robin Carhart at the Imperial College of London who are studying it in a clinical environment, which is not the best place to study it in relation to ancient sites, to understand and interpret them. It's really the wrong sort of interpretation environment. So what I've said to Dennis is why this subject might be taboo is because when you get onto the subject of human evolution and what's behind it, and when you get onto the subject of religion, if you follow those subjects, where do they lead to? Those subjects lead to the head of religious orders being trained and accepted into religious orders, you know, ordainment and things like that, and ultimately it's in connection with the authorities and the rulership of the kings and the monarchy, and making kings and governing and ruling. That's where this subject leads to, even though we know through practice that when you get a lot of hippies and they get into mushrooms and psychedelics and things like that, they end up getting interested in psychedelic art, they end up getting interested in philosophy, they end up getting interested in love and peace, which is what the liberals are interested in. In fact, you don't actually end up being too bothered about or interested in leadership. unless you are, like Roller Mogfling, or Half Pendragon. These are actual people who go to Stonehenge and have ceremonies there. It tends to be that those type of people seem to end up getting interested in freedom, understanding, sharing and love, and art and things like that. They don't tend to be interested in armies, fighting, domination and leadership. So it's quite strange, but that is something of a religious nature. Like, if you get interested in religions like archbishops and forgiveness and sins and things like that, the philosophical side of it and how we should be living, you do get interested in religion and spirituality, but you don't tend to get too interested in rulership, monarchy and domination and military. But the pursuit of the religious order and the pursuit of the religious sacrament and understanding philosophy and learning is tied into that in the way that we've got it set up currently with the monarchy. And there is definitely some sort of gesture towards evolution, and the Archbishop he might be the Primate of all England or whatever. So it is to do with, an evolution itself is about getting better, improvement of humans or evolution of humans to a more intelligent and capable point, which gestures towards governance and leadership and having, someone who happens to be, claiming to be the best and most evolved and intelligent person on the planet, which is whatever ruler you've got, and their military organisation and their spiritual order and their priests that seem to be acting all aligned to the goals and ambitions and aims of that monarch and their order and their government, right? Not particularly liberal sharing and freedom aims, which are completely the opposite of the corporate agenda, which is profit, power. It is progress and technology of devices, but they're now more obsessed with technology and devices like Brian Cox and the Hadron Collider, and their knowledge, their advancement, their technology, their understanding, and probably likely their evolution, more than the state of the countries and the planet and the freedom of everybody's sharing and caring and loving, getting along, is undermined because the profit, the power in the sovereign, the amount of profit you have stored and the technology that you possess and hold, or they possess and hold for their evolution, puts them in the authoritative power control position. And actually, there are arguments over evolution when it comes to ethnic mixing and things like that. Yet, liberty and freedom are not supposed to discriminate between different, people can mix and do what they want freely. But if it's strategically controlled and strategically planned so that there is not a random devolution or mixture in human beings, but if there is a strategically planned one, and you get a reduction in the progress of evolution while at the same time a massive step forward in those with the capacity to evolve themselves and also take more control through machines and devices, you've got a serious problem, because you've got global domination and takeover, which is manifesting through corporate power and control. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg with his big retreat villa with bars around it, blocking everyone out of his swimming pools in Hawaii, and he wants to be all amicable and agreeable when he goes into work or goes on holiday to Iceland or whatever. But although Elon Musk, you can say he's not doing what Mark's doing with his house and his villas and mansions. He's actually, Elon Musk was meant to be just living in one of the basic houses that he's selling. Those drop and deploy houses. So he's a bit of a wild card, is Elon Musk. But he wants to develop and implement the machine to mind technology, and Mark wants to implement the virtual reality world what is programmable. The only thing about being programmable is that all these people who are making progress in technology like to do models and experiments with programmable software and programmable machines. They get that much into being programmable that they've got programmable coming out of their eyeballs and brain. In fact, their entire work and study is revolved around predictable models and programmability. So if they are pushing that on us and wanting to program us, then I think they're lying, which is why we get into this guy with the artificial intelligence and wanting to create robots and humans with feelings. Yet we've got 20 billion zillion Chinese people with emotions and feelings. Why we need to create robots who can pass off as humans when we've got an excess amount of humans in China and Japan? I don't know what these people are thinking. They're actually insane. So, well, there's far too many people with real emotions and feelings that we need to care about and look after. So, the reason I think that I'm right about this area, I think that the geography, the biodiversity, and the actual existing evidence of sites with the meaning and symbology and the secret area and the symbology, for the start of the river flowing into the sea and all that, I think that it's valid. And I think that there are political reasons why this government and religious order, the Archbishop of Canterbury, don't really want us to know about it properly or learn about it properly, because it raises questions in opposition to their directives and rulership and domination. That's what I've been putting to Dennis McKenna and Paul Stanitz. They're Americans, and they're under they have a president that they elect in the Statue of Liberty. The Americans sold on liberty for their main statue and directives, but yet now they are also facing issues from corporate entities. But I don't quite think the Americans quite understand the issues that happen about legalizing things like psilocybin if it is going to lead us on the path and trail and pursuit of evolution, because then you might end up with something like a pill or tablet which can make every person into a king or ruler or an archbishop, and that is not in line with what the Pope and the Church and the Archbishop and Prince Charles wants, because Prince Charles wants to be the next King of England. Prince Charles doesn't want people to get interested in evolution and making themselves into the next, Archbishop or next ruler, because there's only enough room for one. So that's the issue that Prince Charles has with it, and the Queen. Those are the serious, very real, maybe even dangerous issues that we face in interpreting sites and learning the truth about them. We can end up facing these questions and issues which ultimately lead to questions of rulership, domination, military force. But now that is manifesting as corporate power and corporate takeover and corporate funded science, corporate funded technology, where it's those who have money are the ones who have priority over the rest of the planet, over starving Africans, although they've got you do virtue queuing, so we're told. Leaders and political parties have always got to do virtue queuing. So it looks like they're very concerned about, building cancer hospitals and helping people, yet their products and their profits have been, ruining people's teeth with sweets and, excess food, Chinese meals and Japanese meals that they've been making takeaways that aren't very nutritionally positive effect on us. They're more fats and sugars. They're far from, spinach and wild garlic soups, which are a lot more healthier, beneficial and nutritious, and help the human to achieve each individual human's best health, best longevity, and have the best, most enjoyable life for as long as possible. And when they get into old age, they won't be as forgetful or as misleadable, as if they're starting to lose their memory or whatever. No one's going to be immune from health issues, but they can prevent health issues or hold them off for as long as possible. But then again, half the scientists will tell you, oh, well, that's our goal, that's what we want to do, that's what we're doing with the £20 billion funding that's been donated to his cause, and, Jeff's been giving money to charities or whatever, but yet still they seem to be wanting, there's less interest in history and heritage and more interest in their objectives and goals and their progress for the future. That's the problem, and it's a big political problem because we're having riots and protests all over the country now, and many people are fighting for their own right, maybe to harm their body, their own right to eat donuts, their own right to self-harm, but yet they were only put in that situation because of someone else invented it and created it, got them hooked on it, promoted and used adverts to get them to buy it, and then that's where we are now. Right, and I've ended up going on a massive tangent from the subject that I wanted to, but that comes under the interpretation of this area because you have to acknowledge and understand that if you want to get the sites recognised and acknowledged and do proper real archaeology and study about them. Now, the main other subject that I wanted to talk about is this, and this sort of comes down to... It does come down to the symbology meaning of the forms of the sites, why they might have chose them or liked them, the male and the female, and the animals like the white horse, and the dragon and things like that. And that's a different subject. So that I guess we're going into the second subject now. So when you draw something or when you get a picture, you sometimes just either end up seeing faces in things in the same way you might see a face in a tree just because it naturally has one, or when you're drawing something, you might end up drawing a face. Now, when I did this map, I didn't intend to do any faces in it because I'm not drawing faces, I'm drawing a map of the area. I knew I wanted this to be sort of female shape. That's what I wanted to do because I think that that's what it is. And the male sort of shapes on here, but I didn't end up doing these two prominent, actually. I did them quite basic. And I did that because I didn't want to exaggerate or romance on it. I wanted to do it more accurate. And I think it is quite accurate. So it ended up having this a little bit like a face here, and it's actually like a face mask, but I just drew the forest there and I put a couple of lakes on, and it ended up having this sort of Yoda character. Now, I will say that I do have a Yoda character in here at the side of my bed. Hold on. So opposite me, I do actually have the little Yoda character hanging next to me, right? So that likely was part of a subconscious influence on me while I was drawing the map, because I drew it while I was mainly sat here and in the kitchen. I drew it while I was sat here, then I drew some of it when I was in the kitchen, right? But one other thing that I absolutely did not know, I decided to do, instead of north, south and east, west, I decided to do it in Gaelic. And it turns out that Aya and Ia are the words for east and west. So Ia and Aya. Now, what I find interesting is that direction goes to Ireland, which is, we call it Aya, E-I-R, Aya, the Aya, and that's like Aya is that direction. I find that interesting. Also, can you remember those Tuatha De Danann people that they keep talking about in Ireland? One of the directions is Tuath, so it's a little bit like the Tuatha De Danann. So I don't know if it's the people of the north or what. But this Ia, right, for east, it just happens to be that pointing towards the east is this ear here. Now, I can guarantee you this is the truth, and I can swear on that. I've never researched the north, south, east, west words for Gaelic, ever. So, and I hadn't started doing the translations for the map at the time that I was drawing this. So that is very mysterious that it's got this ear on it, and there's that there. I've actually also seen a face with a bit of a funny ear on it on the back of one of the buses, but you can only see it by the border and shape of the sticker, not of the... It was on one of the Yorkshire Tiger buses. It wasn't the picture on it, but when you're inside the bus looking out, it was one of the ones that used to go to Wakefield. I think it might have been the Home Wakefield bus that used to have it on the back of it, which I noticed on the Yorkshire Tiger bus, which is quite strange, but it was the outline of a sticker on the back, big back window of the bus. there's some sort of, I don't know if I ended up putting some pencil on there. You can only see it when the light shines on it a certain way. So we do sometimes put faces in. I didn't kind of like sort of want a face to be there, and I kind of think maybe it kind of makes the map look a bit weird. But so I want to talk about the faces in relation to maps now. So what David Andrews has done on this map is there aren't really any face. You can't really see any faces in the landscape of this map. He hasn't done any in, so it's not like any of these hills look like a face or not. But what he ended up doing afterwards is when he did the compass, and there's a lot of maps make use of decorative compasses and put horses on or elaborate finales and decorations, right? What he's actually done is this blowing sun or moon. I don't know if it's the moon or the sun blowing. So what he does is now, in the middle of the ocean, for when he comes to doing the compass, he purposely identifies a face for the compass and part of the decoration, but it's not actually in the landscape. I think that he was aware that when you're drawing maps, you can actually end up drawing faces in the landscape or them appearing. And I actually think that he thought, right, I'll make a conscious decision not to put any in so it doesn't spoil the landscape. But what I will do is to symbolise and acknowledge that he actually drew the face of the sun or the moon blowing. So it's like, any other faces that appear in the landscape, sort of blowing them away. So he made an effort not to. So he put the face ends up being in there for the compass. That's quite significant because I didn't actually want to put. I didn't know that the east was I didn't actually. I actually wanted to do a stone circle for the compass, but what's actually happened is it's ended up having the compass has actually ended up being the ear of this face into the landscape, but not as this is not a compass. I could have drawn a compass here with a face with a big ear, but that is the. Then that would have been the compass, but that wasn't meant to be the compass. That was just meant to be the landscape. That was meant to be the compass. So that was a bit odd. Now, the thing is, I should have made extra effort not to have a face turn out in it, but there's a little bit of a face here. It's hard to draw things without faces appearing in them. This almost looks like Asterix, or like it, because the Celts were famous for having moustaches. That almost looks like a moustache in his chin and a nose and two eyes kind of like looking upwards or whatever, or half asleep, like coming out of the water. I didn't like intend that one either. So, like David Andrews, you have to take a bit of effort to check your map to make sure no faces come out of it, except the one you want to put in it. Or if you're you could have done a different decoration for the compass. On this one there is a face for the compass separate, but there are no faces that have been drawn into it elsewhere. So the thing now, what happened? When Aaron was doing this, this is what I said to Aaron. I said, look, my map's ended up having a bit of a sort of Yoda sort of face on it, and I didn't know if I wanted that on it, so I don't want any faces in the map. So when he started doing this one, he was basing it on mine, but he had to sort of remove bits. But you end up having in his sketch, like that almost looks like the BFG popping his head up there with two eyes. It's not easy to do a map without having faces on. And then the thing is, hold on a second. So this is the map that Aaron's done based on mine. And the reason that I got Aaron to do the map is because I didn't want a map that was anything like mine. I wanted it to be totally unique and different. But he is kind of like just a very, very good, professionally well done copy of mine. But he's not. He's copied these sites similar to mine, but I gave him instructions to do them like kind of different, really. But I think that he couldn't end up doing it. It's so small. It was going to be even smaller on that version because that's only A4. That's only A4 size, really. Although to be honest, when you look at that area there, it's about the same size. So he hasn't really done it that much bigger. He's just added on the extra border and stuff around it. So he hasn't actually done the map area itself that much bigger, actually. But what's happened is he took that out. I didn't want any faces in it, but there's ended up being a face here, which is sort of like a dog shape with flappy ears, almost like Snoopy, but a bit of a sinister version with the nose there on the thing, and it looks a bit mean. So I kind of not happy about that, because I kind of said to him that I didn't want it to have any faces on it. I kind of wanted it to be, see what Dave Andrews has done here. He's done a big effort to make sure his maps don't have any faces in the landscape, and then to signify that he's done a clean job of it, when he comes to doing the compass, he puts the face in the compass, not in the actual. It's not part of the landscape. It's not kind of like put into there weird. But the interesting thing is when we get to the Celts. You see, I think the Celts loved and worshipped horses, the horse form, which is why they've got the white horse at Uffington. And the Celts have got, the male and female. They definitely made note of the male and female parts of the landscape, because they went out of their way to make that form Belus Nap and Uli Longbarrow. So they were going out of the way to create male and female forms in the landscape, like the scene in the gig. But that's a statue. And this is where, the thing is, when you get into psychedelics and art, you start understanding, it becomes a subject of study of how we recognise faces in the visual field. For example, when you're born and the first thing you see, is the nurse or your mum or whatever, or your dad, or usually you'd see maybe another woman or your dad or something. It's the whole pixels of reality correlating together, and that's why we always seek to communicate with the external world. It's why we always see faces in trees, and why we talk to little insects and snails, and why we talk to dogs, even though dogs can't speak. It's a communication with the world. You could say it's communicating with God, but we've got our familiar forms, our ancestors and our family are our familiars. They are forms in the reality of the world which we are familiar with. We are a copy of our parents combined together. So we are a physical embodiment of the memory of ancestors, and we're familiar with them, So when you look at a tree and seeing a face in it, you're wanting to make that connection. It's almost like, your own kind, or your own way of communicating is through the mouth, the eyes, and speaking and hearing. So it's almost like, you're looking for an access point, a communication point with God or with the world through the what we usually communicate is through speaking and hearing. This is when we get on to how animals communicate, and studying that, how horses communicate through certain nods and shakes of the head, peacocks by their feathers. This is why people who are interested in psychedelics get interested in everything and philosophy and different subjects, because they turn on the self-reflection modes and the philosophical modes and get you interested in learning about things, and then enhance it and put you in these states where you can reflect on it, and you find it really interesting, which is where we've lost a lot of that now, because what we're interested in now is someone else's, not God's creation of the world, but, some Google engineer's creation, his machine that he's trying to make as a human and trying to identify his human emotions, or someone's mobile phone, or, the television, Philip Schofield. The problem with this is that, do you really, if everyone in the world was Philip Schofield now, if every single person in the world was a Philip Schofield clone and went into a television studio, the same television studio, what you'd have is empty houses all around England with everyone in one studio standing in front of a TV camera in a big group, all wanting the attention of the entire country. But the broadcasting cameras wouldn't be broadcasting it to anyone because there wouldn't be anyone in the houses. So the TV set might be on in all the houses, but there's just an empty chair there in a living room, an empty sofa, because the entire country would be deserted. It would be an entire country of television sets with no one watching them. It would be really weird. Yet there would be lots of Philip Schofield clones in one studio, and they would be all together in one big, massive, huge group, like an O2 concert or something like that. But they would be addressing no one because they would be all saying the same thing or doing the same show. So that's why I'm not a great fan of the mainstream and the power of the television broadcast. The entire principle of the television broadcast. That's why I'm not a great fan of it, And that's why I'm more a person who is more interested in breaking this obsession with mobile phones and machines and Mark Zuckerberg's computer games, because I think people should be, all those empty car seats that drive past. That's the Tory world. All these Tory drivers with empty seats driving past people who are walking up the road. It's a waste of resources. You can complain about petrol prices all day. If there ever was a complete waste of space on the planet, it's the entire Tory party. Because the entire Tory party want to have 4x4 cars or whatever, I'm all right, Jack, and drive around with no one sat next to them in an empty seat that's vacant that could give someone else a help along. And that's why the Tories don't want to help people along into the Prince Charles throne, because I'm all right, Jack. That's the problem with the Tories and with Philip Schofield. He's all right, he's famous, he's got his programme, he's got his fans, he's competing with other programmes to have the most fans, whereas, other people now are fighting for the attention of their family and friends from the mobile phone, from the television, from the radio, And I think this is a strong, important thing about the Liberal Party, really, and about peace and love, and a lot of the hippie movement, the psychedelic movement, are meant to be about people coming together and having their own, being interested in each other, what each other is doing, what each other is doing in their own groups. Not this one main central broadcasting place that everyone switches on and sits in front of it, It's almost like the gas chamber, except within the gas chamber, they turn the gas on and the gas seeps in. When you sat in your front room, you turn the television and the light and sound seeps in from Philip Schofield, and you're almost slowly getting primed, you're breathing in the light, you're absorbing the Schofield light waves and sound, buy this, go B&Q, do your garden up. That's not a garden, this is a garden, do it up like this, like Philip Schofield's, and then, you can make some money for B&Q, who owns B&Q, or Rothschild, and Prince Charles and the Queen, who owns when you find out, who owns the majority of these companies, McDonald's, come and eat this, come and eat that, it's the same people making money out of it. They've created this empire. And then you end up, they put the other someone else in place. The Queen's saying, I'm not the richest person in the world. J.K. Rowling's got more money than me. J.K. Rowling's richer than the Queen. When, let's have a look at Philip's will then, What's Philip been leaving to the Queen? No, we're not allowed to see it, it's secret. And then, let's have a look who's in charge of BlackRock and Vanguard. And Anonymous have looked into it and they said, it's difficult to find out. They don't want you to know. So there's something dodgy going on, because we've got this BlackRock Vanguard group which has a turnover of entire countries, but only a very small elite people who are in control of it and who own it, who don't want people to know who they are. Maybe they didn't really want too many people to know about this valiant area back then. But I think that when you've got that religious order in place, I think that they were supplying to the smaller Long Barrows and Cairns around the other areas that weren't so dense. And I think that I think psilocybin was the religion. And, there are a lot of people who can support that, professional people like, Dennis McKenna and Paul Stantz who can support that. But like I say, it's illegal. And when you follow that line of inquiry, even though it opens up philosophical and religious enlightenment, you end up questioning authority, power, and military. And they've ended up taking the religious power and evolution, they've ended up bending it restricting who can have access to it, so only they do, and only their evolution and their progress is superior, and we all have to fit to their regime, and they've got a military force to enforce it. And that's why we're encountering problems like Putin. That's why we're encountering issues and weird things happening, because really, it's illegal to overthrow this government. It's criminal to overthrow the government or try to. You can elect a new representative for a new party, if it's not being manipulated. But now we're finding out that there are strange things going on with voting and petition signing and elections. So, this is the whole thing, the whole reason, we cannot leave out this discussion when we're talking about the area, because it matters to learn about and know the area. You have to know what may the area have been for and about, and then why can't we study it? Why hasn't it already been recognised? Why do they want to ban the Imperial Chemical Industries factory there? And then why did the tram station suddenly go out? And why did Ramsden sell the land when Sam Copley went to Australia and mysteriously came back from down under with £3 million and bought, or whatever it was, and bought the Ramsden estate, and now Earl Dartmouth's got it? So, we've got issues with leadership, military, rulership, and they really don't like the Free Stonehenge movement. They really don't like the sharing and love of the hippies, and even the style of it. They want to try and stop travellers now, because one of the heritage of this island is the travelling people, travelling caravans and the travellers. It's one of the very old core fundamental culture sects of this country. And not only are they wanting to dig a tunnel in the Stonehenge, whenever there's a Stonehenge festival, there's massive police forces drop on it. Ironically, with their helmet that's Liberty Cap shaped, a black one, yet they're the ones going around taking the drugs off everyone because they're illegal. And you feel very intimidated when you've got an entire police force dropping on, a festival of hippies, and at Wiltshire Police Force, the entire police force sat around